"Take your disgusting sandwich and get the hell away from my car." Max, a homeless Army vet, did something no one expected. He gave away his last meal to a stranger in need. It cost him everything, but little did he know that simple act of kindness would set off a chain of events that would flip his world upside down just a week later. Hey everyone, buckle up, because this story is about to take you on a wild ride. Let's jump in. Max Harper, a 60-year-old homeless veteran, made his home behind St. Andrew's Chapel in Eastwood. The old churchyard was his sanctuary, a place where he found a sliver of peace amid the struggle of daily life. While many veterans had moved on to steady jobs and stable lives, Max had fallen through the cracks. His body bore the scars of service, but it was the wounds no one could see that hurt the most. But even in his darkest days, Max's kindness shone brighter than his hardships. The townspeople all knew him as the veteran who always helped others, even when he had nothing left to give. If a stranger needed directions, Max wouldn't just point them the right way, he'd walk them halfway there. His steady presence a comfort as he double-checked that they were headed safely toward their destination. His warm smile and reassuring nod made everyone feel a little less lost. If someone dropped their groceries, Max would be the first to rush over, his calloused hands gathering scattered cans and vegetables with the precision of a man who'd once held a rifle steady under fire. "No need to worry, ma'am," he'd say softly, his voice gentle and sincere. "Happens to the best of us." And when children accidentally lost their ball near his makeshift shelter behind St. Andrew's Chapel, Max would not only return it, but also spend a few minutes playing with them, his laughter blending with theirs, even if it cost him precious warmth on a freezing day. He made it his business to help anyone who needed a hand, even if his own hands were numb from the cold or his stomach ached from hunger. On rainy nights, he'd offer his tattered coat to those who looked even more desperate than himself. And when the church's food pantry had a line stretching around the block, Max would step aside, insisting that families with kids or elderly folk go first, even if it meant he'd go without a meal. Max's life wasn't always this way. As a kid in Eastwood, he was a standout soccer player, the kind of talent college recruiters salivated over. His speed, agility, and natural skill on the field made him the pride of Eastwood High. Coaches, parents, and classmates all agreed Max Whitman was destined for greatness. His coach said he had the potential to go pro, to turn his passion into a career that would change his life forever. The dream was within his grasp, a full-ride scholarship to a prestigious university almost guaranteed. Scouts attended his games, their notebooks scribbled with his stats and their eyes alight with dollar signs. But everything changed when his father, also a soldier, passed away during the Gulf War. The news struck like a hammer to his chest. Max had always idolized his father, a man of honor and integrity who wore his uniform with pride. His father's letters, filled with encouragement and stories of camaraderie, had kept him going during tough times. His father was his hero, the man he aspired to become, and just like that, he was gone. The loss carved a hollow space in Max's chest that no scholarship or trophy could ever fill. It was as if the world had lost its color, his dreams dulled by the overwhelming grief and rage. His mother tried to comfort him, but her own sorrow was too great, her tears a constant reminder of the life they would never get back. Coaches reached out, friends tried to pull him from the darkness, but nothing could shake the conviction that had taken root within him. Max knew what he had to do. Despite his mother's tears and his coach's protests, he enlisted the day after graduating high school. The decision wasn't about revenge or proving himself. It was about honoring his father's memory, stepping into the boots that had been left empty. "Some things are bigger than football," he told his weeping mother, his voice steady despite the ache in his heart. Deep down, Max knew the decision would break her, but he also knew he couldn't live with himself if he didn't honor his father's legacy. So, at 18, he traded dreams of stadiums and trophies for boots and battlefields. Max served with honor in the Army, completing 2 tours in the Gulf War. His dedication and courage earned him medals he rarely mentioned, pieces of metal that meant more to others than they ever did to him. The real reward was the brotherhood, the shared sense of purpose that made him feel like he was part of something bigger. It was structure, discipline, the kind of unity his father had spoken of with reverence. In those years of service, he thrived, his natural leadership skills making him the man his squad trusted without question. But war leaves marks, and not all of them are visible. Returning to civilian life was harder than he ever imagined. PTSD crept in like a shadow he couldn't shake. The nightmares came first, brutal and unforgiving. Images of explosions, cries for help, and blood-stained sand haunted his sleep, leaving him drenched in sweat and gasping for air. Then came the anxiety. Crowded places felt like death traps. Loud noises triggered memories that lurked just beneath the surface, ready to pull him back into a world of chaos. The panic attacks were the worst. They left him shaking, his chest tight, his vision blurring until he couldn't tell where he was or even who he was. He'd find himself pacing endlessly, trying to ground himself in a world that no longer made sense. The overwhelming sense of isolation was what broke him the most. No one understood what he had seen, what he had lost. His mother tried to be supportive, but she was already buried under her own grief. Old friends couldn't relate to the man he had become, the man who flinched at fireworks and found himself choking on emotion at the sound of a helicopter passing overhead. For a while, he tried to make it work, took odd jobs, moved from one place to another, but it never lasted. His mind was a battlefield, and every day felt like another war he was losing. When his ID was stolen 3 years ago, it felt like the final nail in the coffin. The struggle to get his pension reinstated became unbearable, a nightmare of bureaucratic hurdles and dismissive phone calls that only deepened his resentment. Without identification, he couldn't access the benefits he had risked his life for. The VA office felt like a maze designed to break him down further. He was pushed to the fringes of society, left to fend for himself with nothing but the clothes on his back and the skills he had learned in the military. Even then, Max never lost his Army values. Every day he'd keep his area behind the chapel clean, folding his blanket with military precision. The locals respected him, mothers waved as they passed by, shopkeepers nodded in acknowledgement, and Jim from Jim's Diner often left extra food for him. "Max has more dignity than some people with mansions," Jim would say. "Every time I leave food out by mistake, he finds a way to repay me, sweeping the sidewalk, helping with deliveries, or watching my place when I step out." But one rainy Wednesday, everything changed. Max was standing in his usual spot under the chapel's awning when he noticed a well-dressed man looking frustrated beside a broken-down car. The man in an expensive suit was arguing into a dead phone. He looked completely out of place in this part of town, his fancy shoes soaked by puddles. Max watched as the man's frustration grew, and remembering his military training, he decided to step in. "Need a hand, sir?" Max called out, approaching carefully to avoid startling him. He was used to people being wary of homeless veterans. The man looked up, taking a step back before noticing Max's military posture. Even in ragged clothes, Max stood tall, shoulders back, as the Army had taught him. "My car's dead, my phone's dead, and I have a big meeting in an hour," the man said, his frustration evident. "I don't even know where I am." "You're about 4 blocks from the business district," Max replied. "I know a shortcut, but it's a bit of a walk." The man introduced himself as Timothy Wallace, CEO of Wallace Tech. As they spoke, Max heard the man's stomach growl. Reaching into his bag, Max pulled out a wrapped sandwich, his only meal of the day, saved from the chapel's food program. "Here," Max said, offering the sandwich. "Can't think straight on an empty stomach. That's what my sergeant always said." As they shared the sandwich, Max noticed Timothy's designer watch, likely worth more than most people made in a year. Yet here they were, 2 men from completely different worlds, sharing a simple meal in the rain. It reminded Max of sharing MREs with his fellow soldiers. Rank didn't matter when you were hungry. Timothy seemed to feel the same way. He ate slowly, almost reverently, as if he understood the significance of what Max had done. "This isn't just lunch, is it?" Timothy asked quietly. "This is all I have for today," Max replied, standing a little straighter, military pride kicking in. Timothy studied him more closely. "You served?" "Yes, sir. Army, Gulf War, 2 tours," Max said, keeping it simple. He never bragged, just the facts. Timothy's face changed. "My father was in the Army. He died in the Gulf War. Sergeant George Wallace." Max froze. The name hit him like a punch to the gut. "Sergeant Wallace from the 1st Battalion, 6th Infantry?" Max asked, his hands beginning to shake. Timothy's face softened. "You knew him?" Max nodded slowly. "He saved my life, dragged me to safety during a firefight. I never had the chance to thank him." Timothy's eyes flickered with recognition, the same values his father had lived by clearly in him. He tried to offer Max money, pulling out a thick leather wallet. Max raised a hand. "Your father taught me something important, sir," he said, steadying his voice. "Dignity can't be bought, but it can be given away." The story of Max's last sandwich spread through Eastwood quickly. Some people couldn't believe a homeless man would give away his only meal, while others who knew Max just nodded. It was exactly what they'd expect from him. A week passed, and Max went on with his usual routine. He helped a new vet named Mark set up his tent, showed him where to stay warm, and introduced him to Jim at the diner. But something felt different. The other homeless veterans noticed Max seemed more introspective, often gazing up at the gleaming skyline in the distance. "You okay, Max?" Mark asked one morning, handing him a coffee. "You've been quiet since you spoke to that businessman." That's when they heard it, the unmistakable sound of helicopter blades. 3 black helicopters appeared above the buildings, their synchronized movement catching everyone's attention. Even the local police stopped to watch. Max and the others stood frozen, their eyes glued to the sky. When the helicopters landed in the chapel's parking lot, scattering papers and debris in the wind, a crowd began to gather. Other homeless veterans stepped out of their tents, and Father John came out to watch. Timothy Wallace stepped out of the lead helicopter, accompanied by several military officers and business executives. He walked straight toward Max, who immediately stood at attention despite his worn clothes. "Mr. Harper," Timothy said formally, "I looked into your story after we met. Not only did you know my father, but you earned the Bronze Star in the same battle where he died. Why didn't you tell me?" Max remained at attention, his hands steady. "A soldier doesn't brag about medals, sir." Timothy's voice cracked slightly as he continued. "My father wrote letters home about you, about your bravery, your leadership, and last week you gave me your last meal without hesitation." He paused. "We've been searching for someone to run our new veterans program, someone who truly understands sacrifice, who knows what it means to serve. We want you, Max." The crowd fell silent as Timothy explained the program. Max struggled to keep his composure as he flipped through the papers. Jim wiped away a tear, and Mark stood in stunned silence. "There's more," Timothy said, his voice clear and strong. "We've been going through my father's personal items. He left letters about you, Max. About the man who carried 3 soldiers to safety under fire. The man who gave up his own ride to go back for more wounded. Military officers stepped forward with papers. Max's pension was reinstated, back pay, new ID. Everything he had struggled for on his own was finally provided. The program would offer housing, jobs, and support to hundreds of veterans. Max's life was forever transformed. He now runs the Veterans Outreach Program from an office decorated with his old cardboard sign, a reminder of where he started. The center's cafeteria has become a gathering place where business leaders and homeless veterans share meals and stories. There's even a table reserved for anyone eating alone, with a plaque that reads, "No soldier eats alone." Max's journey reminds us that true strength isn't found in what we own, but in how we lift others up. A single act of kindness, no matter how small, has the power to ignite change in ways we can't always see. It shows us that when we give without expecting anything in return, we open doors to possibilities that can transform lives, ours and others. If this story touched you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more heartwarming tales. Don't forget to check out the video on your screen. You won't want to miss it. Until next time.